I'm now going to talk about the actual war itself, and we're going to be looking at a section I'm going to be calling it Europe Plunges into War. I want to first focus on Germany because that's where we're really going to be looking at who's going to be pushing the early strategies and campaigns in this war. Germany is stuck in a bad situation from the very beginning of the war. As we know, with the assassination and the groups taking different sides, Germany is at war with Russia and Germany is at war with France. So you can see with the location that Germany is stuck in the middle. And what Germany doesn't want to see is that they're fighting a two-front war. They don't want to have some of their troops coming over here and fighting Russia, and then at the same time coming over here and fighting France. That's not what they want to see. They don't want to see a war much like this, that Germany's here, has to deal with France and has to deal with Russia at the same time, because as you can tell, it'd be pretty difficult fighting with two people on the opposite sides. Now, in the movie Sparta, they were able to do it to some extent, and here Germany, they don't want to have to risk it. And they're a little cocky because if you remember the Franco-Prussian War, the Franco-Prussian War was fought a couple decades earlier, and Prussia at the time, which became Germany, let's just say it to make it easy, Germany defeated France, and they defeated them pretty good. So Germany's like, hey, if we quickly attack France and defeat them and take Paris, like we did during the Franco-Prussian War, we'll be able to have time to send our troops over and attack Russia. Because Russia is such a large country and they're behind with the railroad systems, it's going to take Russia a lot longer to mobilize their troops. So Germany's thinking they could have time to take out France and then bring their troops the whole way across Germany and attack Russia and be able to win this campaign. The plan in order for them to do this is called the Schlieffen plan. And in this plan, like I said, they want to take out France first and then have their attention on Russia. The key thing is, though, this has to be a quick victory. They have to take out France quickly, because if they don't, then they're going to be forced fighting this two-front war like this guy right here. And pertaining to the word mobilizing, back in this time period, you need to know that it took a long time to get your troops ready for war and get mobilized because there weren't paid full-time soldiers. A lot of the soldiers were farmers and ordinary people, so to get them ready for war took some time. So that's why Germany's quick on the gun in declaring war on Russia and declaring war on France, because they know they got to win, and they got to win quickly if they want to end up winning the ultimate prize, and that is World War I. So they're stuck in the middle. That's the problem. They do the Schlieffen plan in order to get themselves the strategy to win. However, the Schlieffen plan doesn't work. They first go through Belgium, which was a neutral country, because it was low-lying lands, and they could end up doing it quickly. They didn't have to worry about the forests of France and Germany, Argonne forests, I believe they're called, and they could do it right through Belgium. So now they're declaring war through in Belgium. But the point is, they're really close to Paris, but they don't win. 600 taxi cabs rush soldiers from Paris to the front. I'm not quite sure how much of a role the taxi cabs did, but the point is everyone in Paris is getting involved for this 4-day fight, and it was called the Battle of Marne. This is the most important battle, in my opinion, of World War I. Basically because the first Battle of Marne ends up, France wins and stops the German army and creates this thing what is called the Western Front, which is right here. Pay attention that the Western Front is in France. It's not in Germany. This is where most of the fighting, or all the fighting, is going to happen in the western portion of Europe. But the reason why this first Battle of Marne is so important, because Germany is stopped, and now they're forced to fight a two-front war. And Germany simply can't win while fighting this two-front war, or it's going to be a lot more difficult. If the French lost the first Battle of Marne, Germany would have taken Paris, France would have been forced to surrender, and they could have focused all their attention on Russia with Austria helping, and they easily would have defeated the Russians. So please pay attention to the Battle of Marne. Pay attention to the Schlieffen Plan and why now Germany is struggling. In fact, one of the soldiers said, one of the top generals said, we lost the war after the First Battle of Marne because they realized how difficult it would have been winning to fight a two-front war. So the Schlieffen Plan's a failure. Germany's unsuccessful, unlike the movie Karate Kid, to come over here and defeat the French. So that is not going to work. And this is a picture of the First Battle of Marne. Here are French soldiers lining up, and the battle tactics are quickly going to change. You can't run across a field when you're getting things like machine guns, landmines, and tanks are going to be introduced later in the war. So we're going to have trench warfare going up along here. And there are two significant battles that I want you to know that happen in the Western Front where you're going to see trench warfare. Why do they build trenches? Because they have a stalemate. Basically, no side is winning. The French and the Germans are just pounding at each other, and no one's really gaining or losing ground. It's like two people arm wrestling, and no one's really winning. So these battles are going to be really bloody. The first battle I want you to know, it's down in this area here. It's called Verdun. It's mainly between the French and the Germans. The Germans attack Verdun. Verdun was a very prideful city. The French were very proud of Verdun and the history of Verdun, and it was fortified very well. And the Germans attack it. They want France to bleed to death by just constantly attacking the French, and the French are going to bleed, and they're eventually going to have to give up. Verdun was very violent. It's the violent or the second most bloodiest war of World War I. Here's a fort in Verdun, a French fort, and look at what the Germans end up doing to it. You can see the artillery shells. It's just insane the amount of fighting that you could do. And here you can see just hardly all these trees, the ones that are still standing, all the branches are knocked out. When I was there, you know, this is Europe, it gets cold, so this water would freeze, it would get very cold, the conditions were awful. 1/3 of casualties in World War I were largely by people getting hurt. Here you can see the results of this battle. About 500,000 French casualties, 400,000 Germans had casualties. Again, casualties are not just killed, that's wounded or missing, but these are the crosses at Verdun. This is I don't know what they call it. It's a monument for the unknown soldiers, and you could go inside here and you can see all the tombs along here. Here are all the crosses of French soldiers that died. The French consider Verdun very, very important. It's where the French stopped the Germans, and the French always look at Verdun as a very important battle. A little bit fast forward a little bit later. Again, the French technically, by tactics, win the Battle of Verdun. Another battle on the Western Front is called the Battle of Somme, S-O-M-M-E, and here the goal were for the British to attack the Germans, and they wanted to penetrate the German army, again this is the Western Front, back into Germany and hopefully strike a hole and to really get into Germany. They fail in their tactics, as in basically the trenches move anywhere between 2 to 7 miles, so to speak, and so it goes from here to here, which is not very good considering the Allies being the French and the British. Mainly the British fought in this. By the way, South Africans, Indians, and Canadians are fighting in this battle. They're bringing people from South Africa and India to fight in the Somme, which was kind of interesting, because they had no idea why they were fighting this battle. A lot of people didn't know why they were fighting this battle. In fact, a lot of people didn't even know why they were fighting the war. But that said, they went about 2 miles, and they lost about 420,000 men. In some places, they only moved 2 miles. That's basically 2 men died for each centimeter that the trenches would move forward. A lot of people dispute whether this is a success or not. It is a dispute. I consider the tactics, they failed in breaking the line, but it was a success as in it greatly weakened the amount of German soldiers that could fight in this war. And certainly the British lost more men than the Germans, but the Germans just couldn't keep handling these kinds of attacks. So actually you could say Germany kind of bled to death during the Battle of Somme. But But the point is, I wanted you to know the British did this, and many historians do consider this a success overall in weakening Germany. And that's the Battle of Somme. So let's go back up here. We had the Battle of Somme, Battle of Verdun. It's a stalemate. The Western Front is in France. Again, no fighting's going on in Germany. Keep that in the back of your mind when we talk about Adolf Hitler. Let's talk about the Eastern Front. Real quick, the Eastern Front, with the help of the Austrian-Hungary Empire, the German army is coming in, and they're fighting. The Russians give stiff resistance, but they keep on getting forced back. They're running out of food. They're running out of supplies. They don't like their leader, Nicholas II, too much. And by 1917, with the rise of communism, we'll talk about that later. But what I want you to know for now is in 1917, the Russian army ends up surrendering, and they have a peace treaty with the Germans. And now the Germans can focus on fighting a one-front war with all their energy over here. This is a devastating blow for France and Great Britain. But France and Great Britain are going to get a new ally a couple months later in 1917. And that ally, as you know, is the United States. Across the seas are going to come over. And that is a big refreshing thing for the French and the Great Britain and those armies. So that's the heart of the war, the fighting. There is fighting in the Ottoman Empire. We're not going to talk about that, the Gallipoli campaign. I just wanted to focus on the Western Front for the most part. Okay, so that is fighting in World War I. Or next time I make one, we're going to be talking about the fighting that ends the war.